Antonio Conte there saying sorry to the fans, need time, needs patience. Maybe they were lucky, he says, last season to finish in the top 4. You could bring that into the conversation, certainly, because we know what happened with Arsenal at the end of last season, how it sort of fell apart for them, and when they, lost 3 games in a row, for example, that saw them eventually fall out of the top 4 picture and Spurs went above them. But you do find with Antonio Conte, Cass, and you kind of alluded to it when we briefly spoke about this result, he will come out with excuses upon excuses upon excuses. And when things don't go well, there's always a negativity about things with him. You know, prior to the World Cup, my players are tired. I mean, they hadn't even played half of a season and they were already tired, he'd suggested. I'm seeing a lot of things on social media, people not happy with how Spurs are, especially with Antonio Conte. Is he the future for Spurs? Can you see him lasting this season?
Well, just on a couple of things now. When I hear him talk, and he talks about this slow process and the foundations that need to be built in a football club, yeah, that's fair enough. There needs to be a time ethic to it.
Yeah.
But you bought Richarlison in for 60 million. You bought Jed Spence in for, I don't know, close to 20 million. You bought Bazuma in from Brighton for another decent fee. No, he has made change. He's made the permanent signings of Bentancur and Kulusevski come in the last year. So there's half a team that's already come in to his club with decent players already there. I have more of a problem with his style of play. I do think it's not progressive enough, as in the flair that needs to be in that side. Now, we can go and say, well, you need to sign flair players. But why are they getting back into the games is because I've seen Bentancur play further up the pitch when they're losing games. I've seen Højbjerg get further up the pitch and get nearer the forwards to create problems when they've been losing games. So that's how they've turned games round. Now, they never start like that. They always start with moving the ball around. And by the way, Spurs, out of all the top 6, have got the worst back 4, but it can be a back 5 at Spurs very often.
Yeah.
Longley, I've seen a lot of him at Barcelona. Don't think he's good enough for Spurs. Eric Dyer, mainly been a squad player at Tottenham. You could put Davinson Sanchez in there, and I know, some of these have not been playing in recent weeks, but generally, I think if you go across their back line, the only ones that I think should survive there is Ben Davies, who's in the twilight of his career, and Christian Romero. After that, I'm scratching my head about all the positions that need. It's hard to judge Jed Spence because he's come from Bath. The fans were ironically cheering because he came on yesterday because they're like, why has he not played? Doherty's done okay, he's done fine, he's done all right. Emerson Royal, not good enough for Spurs. Not good enough. He's a decent enough player, but not for a team that's meant to be in the top 6. So I think there's huge challenges, certainly from goalkeeper to the back line. That team are going to concede goals without a doubt.
Well, and we've seen that regularly this season. It was the 10th game in a row that they've conceded the first goal. When you look at that run of conceding a first goal, now I mentioned it earlier on, they have tended to be a side that, even though they've conceded the first goal, have won more points from losing positions than any other side. But actually in this run of 10 games, they've only actually won 3. And that's including the League Cup and Champions League and all of this as well. So it's an all competition stat. But we've talked about it before as well. They continuously start matches slowly. And yours mentioned there about Antonio Conte and his style of football. But we've always known his style of football. He's never been the most adventurous as a manager. So we knew what we're going to expect, surely, from an Antonio Conte side. Yeah,
but like all managers that have been successful in the past, and Jose Mourinho is included in that because he was one of the great managers, so was Antonio Conte, the game's evolved. It's changed. The laws have changed. You can't play. You can't make as many tackles. You can't, dominate and press and really, give too many fouls away. You get sent off very easily. You give away penalties very easily. And the laws are for teams that get in braver positions. I've watched the most entertaining team in Europe a number of times this year, Napoli. Okay, I've watched them numerous times. They ripped Liverpool to pieces in Napoli in the home game in Champions League. They are a really dangerous side. Spalletti, the manager, is he's Bielsa-like, crazy, the way these teams play. I look at Bielsa and I think, Spurs fans, surely you'd rather have a Bielsa type of manager, and it could be the maverick sort of signing as a manager. You go, well, that's crazy. But Leeds made that decision, and Leeds are now in the Premier League. And yes, OK, they struggled last year. He may have kept them up, he might not have, Bielsa. But you create a style of play that I think is what Spurs, and I would put Chelsea into that bracket as well, that need to have to be successful again. They need to have... the game's evolved now. You can't play... For me, tell me one club in the last 5 years that's won something. You probably could go with Atletico Madrid.
That's the only
Atletico
team I was
Madrid.
thinking
Look
of.
how they're suffering.
Yeah.
You know, and now that's to do with financial issues. But generally, all the adventurous teams are winning in Europe. Tell me the last time an Italian team won the Champions League. You know, Napoli could be the first time for a long time that win the Champions League this year.
But then who's at fault for that? That's surely, you can bring in Chelsea into this conversation. It's either the Chelsea board, it's the Spurs board. They've brought in a manager into both of these clubs that do not play that expansive, exciting, front-footed football. And now they're getting exactly what they've hired in the sense of a more pragmatic style of football.
Yeah, well, I'd be more concerned as an ex-Chelsea player as well, that because I watch Chelsea and I think, there's not enough purpose. There's too much passing. There's too much passing from all the back players into the midfield and out the other side. It's too slow. It's too predictable. Nottingham Forest yesterday were the far more adventurous team against Chelsea. To a team that have brought in 24 players. And that is as shambolic as it gets, bringing in so many new players coming into a football club. And Steve Cooper's found a way of playing with